So the discussion is about the internal dialogue. What do you tell yourself about yourself in relation to the world around you? This is probably the most important skill for us to develop, especially in a world where we're inundated with information and perceptions and versions of aesthetics that we are told match substance, but as we know, impact and influence and those intrinsic values are something we can't touch, but we can create things out of those ideas. What I mean by that is we really have to start getting in touch with what do we tell ourselves. It's often not about the obstacle or the difficulty or the failure. It's what are we telling ourselves about that obstacle, that difficulty, that uncomfortable place, that failure. Are we telling ourselves it's something to be afraid of? Are we telling ourselves when we hit these roadblocks that they're immovable? Because once we do that, they are. Reality is based off our perception of that, right? We have to learn to tell ourselves things that uplift and motivate us to move forward in the face of unforeseen challenges, because especially when you're trying to make something new, there's a level of difficulty that you don't know exists. But what you can do is tell yourself to be prepared for it and tell yourself to welcome it, knowing that it means there's somewhere else to go. Now, when I talk about internal dialogue, I use the gym because it's a very, very easy place to practice getting better at this. Right? There's physical limitations, there's physical sensations, and you can discuss things with yourself as you move through that space and recognize internal dialogue a lot easier, which is how I teach people to use it to their benefit. Gave you a perfect example, right? Let's say I have you do something you've never done before. Well, outside of the actual neurological signals you're going to be getting, there's the perception of yourself in this space that we have to overcome. When I showed up to the gym that day, did I tell myself I was already tired? Did I tell myself I hate what I'm doing? Did I tell myself I'm not exercising? Did I tell myself I'm not making progress? Did I tell myself that I hate being here in the first place? That is a huge thing to think about before you even step into that place. Second of all, once you get there, if that's how you were feeling, realize that it's now going to reflect in how you sense everything else around you, because now you have the lens of discomfort that you're seeing the world through. And as information comes in, it is heightening all the things you've decided to tell yourself to pay attention to that reaffirm your feeling of discomfort and unhappiness. But we can very simply use that exact same scenario, that same feeling, to give ourselves a message of positivity and progress. Progress itself is a process that is not defined by any one or two measurable things. It's defined by us. But again, our internal dialogue has to dictate that. So when I get to that bar, am I saying, man, I've never lifted this before? It's probably going to be heavy. Man, I've never lifted this before, and I'm not really looking forward to it now. Here we go. Now that I've started, oh man, this was so heavy. 5 of these? I have to do 5 more? How am I possibly going to do this? What I'm doing is internalizing my own struggle and creating a bigger mountain for myself than exists. But in reality, that weight is absolute. It is not going to go up. It's not going to go down. What can go up and down is my ability to overcome it based off what I tell myself. So what I can tell myself is, I don't care how many of these I have to do. I'm just going to do them. I'm not going to tell myself whether or not this is heavy because I already know that. It's something I've never done before. What I am going to tell myself to do is to pay attention to my form, to execute as best as I can, and to apply as much effort as I can, so at least I can get a real reading of where the world is around me and how I fit into this with this exercise, versus what I already felt like it's going to be and what I've heard from other people, and that shaping my reality. Because now not only is the absolute nature of this obstacle out of my control, I'm giving away my control of my perception of the ability to do it. This is something that applies to everything across the board. And what we have to realize is awareness of this first is the step you need to take. Step you need to take in terms of seeking out the reality of wherever you're at and trying to learn how to detach from all the things you've been taught, all the experience of the past, because none of them matter in the face of what you're going through at this very, very moment. When we think about the way history has gone, it is always somebody who's decided that the limitations, as far as everyone else has described them and how they see them at that moment, are not the ones they have to subscribe to or believe in. If we didn't have those people, I wouldn't be talking to you right now on a telephone. We need the Steve Jobs of the world. We need the people who are going to push the envelope of what's real, who are going to tell themselves that the existing limitations aren't the only ones that are real. And it's not like this is some existential thing that has to happen. It is starting out small. It is starting by telling yourself, like, just because I didn't have this thing work out doesn't mean that it can't work out. Just because this didn't go as well as I'd like doesn't mean that's the end of it. There is very few things that are finite in this world, and our ability to grow is not on that list. But it can be if we decide to tell ourselves that it is, right? We can tell ourselves, I haven't reached this pinnacle yet. that yet allows me to explore the space between where I'm at right now and where I would like to be. And in that space, if I'm aware, what I'll do is pick up on all the things I didn't know mattered, or let go of things that don't no longer serve me. Or I can start to develop different conversations with myself that now I can point at any obstacle that I come across. But we have to realize if we all subscribe to what was already possible, we would never see anything new. This is what being a Ronin is all about. That's why the future belongs to the Ronin, because it is made and experienced by people who've decided that we can take what we have and build on it. And the unknown is not something to fear, it's something to actually seek out. But that comes back to that internal dialogue. Are you telling yourself that the unknown is where you're going to learn? So now you're aware and curious when you hit these moments. Or are you telling yourself the unknown is where things go wrong? And now you're only limiting. You're only aware of limits. You're only aware of what you can't do. Think about that Roger Bannister story, right? It wasn't possible to break a 4-minute mile until someone else did it. You have to ask yourself, am I going to live only seeing what's possible for other people before it's possible for me? Or am I going to live deciding that things are possible as long as I can chase them? And in that chase, I can learn as much as I could by succeeding. Because once you succeed, the reality is you should be starting that process over again anyway. As Tim Chi mentioned in one of my last Ronin Code episodes, it's about how quickly we can go through that process, right? The process of progress, which is trying something, failing, succeeding, tweaking, trying, failing, succeeding, tweaking. That's the idea. Failure is only an opportunity unless you tell yourself it's an end. So what we have to do is get better at the conversations we have with ourselves. That way it doesn't matter if somebody tells you you can't do it. It doesn't matter if someone tells you it's not possible. As long as you know that there is something to be gained by trying and by existing in that growth space, there will be, and you will recognize it. And then you can start using it for other aspects of life, mainly hopefully to impact others, which is what I'm doing. Because I realize that the space between what I can do and what I have yet to do is everything. That's where I get to learn the most. That's where I get to build the most. That's where I get to impact myself, my internal dialogue, my intrinsic values, and therefore the world around me the most. Seek that out. Seek to become your greatest cheerleader so that defeat is nothing more than a part of the circle and it's not the end. Have a good one.